everyone. Welcome to TennisSpin.net's very first blogcast. I'm Kavitha, and I'm here with your preview of the 2010 Australian Open, and a couple of the things you're going to want to watch during this year's first Grand Slam. The men's draw, of course, is headlined by top-seeded Roger Federer and defending champion Rafael Nadal, both of whom are playing well, if not perfectly, in the early days of the year. And while I think both men will advance well into the bracket, there are certainly threats from others in the field. Juan Martín del Potro stunned pretty much everybody, including Roger, back in September, when the 6'6" Argentine dethroned the 5-time reigning King of Queens. But a wrist injury that took him out of an exhibition match this week might hinder him this time around. And Novak Djokovic, who won his only Grand Slam here 2 years ago, finished 2009 with a couple titles of his own, defeating both Rafa and Roger in the process. Then there's Andy Murray, arguably the best player, man or woman, who has never won a major. Not surprisingly, a recent survey found that he was the one most likely to take home his first Grand Slam this year. But in a bizarre twist, Murray is now ranked 5th in the world and could face Rafa in the quarters down under. But let's not forget Nikolai Davydenko, who's been a machine in the past 6 months. Last year's champ in London is on a 9-match win streak and has captured 4 titles since the US Open, including Doha last week. And he's also been racking up a pretty good record against the top seeds. The Russian might have a thing or two to say about his own chances to take home that first slam. On the women's side, 09 champ Serena Williams and runner-up Dinara Safina have earned the top seeds in Australia this year. Serena's been playing well, securing the year-end #1 ranking for the first time since 2002. While she has a habit of winning this tournament only in odd-numbered years, Williams certainly has the better chance of getting back to the finals. But she's not indestructible. Elena Dementieva drubbed her for the Sydney title on Friday, breaking Serena's serve 5 times. Safina has had a tougher couple months. After withdrawing from the year-end championships in Doha with a lower back injury and pulling out of the warm-up tournament in Brisbane, she was handily beaten in the Sydney quarters. Though she said she's feeling 100%, she could struggle against some of the top players. But those ladies aren't the biggest story. That, of course, is the long-time rivalry between 2 Belgians. Kim Clijsters and Justine Henin played in the Australian Open final back in 2004 and could meet in the quarters this year. They've already contested 1 championship since returning to the pros. Clijsters, of course, roared back on the scene last August and took less than a month to capture her second Grand Slam trophy. And Justine made the finals at her first tournament back from retirement, ultimately losing to Kim in a long 3-setter last week in Brisbane. A leg injury she sustained during that match forced her to withdraw from Sydney, but hopefully a week off was all she needed to play at her best in Melbourne. As always, there are a couple of potential spoilers in both the men's and women's brackets. Last year's surprise semifinalist Fernando Verdasco and Roland Garros runner-up Robin Soderling are certainly on the ones to watch list. They've proven they have the chops to pull off big upsets. And Australia's hometown hero, Leighton Hewitt, has gotten himself back in shape after a hip injury sidelined him for most of the 2008 season. He did suffer an upset in the Sydney quarters, but he continues to show that he's still hungry for another major title. For the women, Maria Sharapova never got the opportunity to defend her '08 title, and now back within a stone's throw of the top 10, she could challenge the big seeds if her serve is able to hold up. And another local favorite, Sam Stosur, is coming off her best year ever, culminating in her first tour title in Osaka. She did lose early in Sydney, but hopefully she can get confidence and momentum back on her side. And then there are a couple of players I'll be watching particularly closely. You all know my frustration with James Blake over the past 2 years. My favorite active player has had a rash of disappointing results, and so won't be seeded in Australia. The first time that's happened at a major since the '05 US Open. He did notch a technical upset over Sam Querrey in Brisbane, so hope is not lost. And for those in the J Block looking for another silver lining, at that Open where he was ranked 49th, James beat Rafael Nadal on his way to the quarters. And then there's Melanie Oudin, the teenager who became the unlikely sweetheart of Flushing Meadows last year. She comes to Australia with her best ever ranking at a slam, and she's going to need to prove quickly that her performance in New York wasn't a fluke. She has a tough draw with a potential second-round matchup against Aggie Radwanska, the woman who knocked her out of Wimbledon. But Melanie has shown she's not one to be intimidated, so I'm holding out hope for her yet. So who do I think is going to win the whole thing? Well, I'll wait a few days before making that call. But be sure to check back on Sunday when I'll bring you my predictions for the 4 players in both the men's and women's brackets who are going to make the semifinals. Till then, thanks for watching TennisSpin.net. See you next time.